Children of the Corn Revelation is the seventh installment in the Children of the Corn franchise, and this one was released in 2001 from the producers of Dracula 2000 and Hellraiser Inferno. Who cares who produced the fucking film, alright? It really doesn't make a whole lot of merit when it comes to the quality of film, depending on who produced the film. The producer finances the film basically and puts the project together, and that's about it. He really doesn't have, or she doesn't really have much creativity to the plot in general, sometimes, of course, but in general, they're just being faithful to the project and putting it together. Directed by makes a lot more sense, or starring this person from this other film makes a little bit more sense too, but producer, I don't know why they they do that a lot, and I've heard it from other people before, so it's not just me. But regardless, this is a 2001 film. This one definitely, certainly feels the most made for TV compared to the other films that I've seen so far. I could say that this is the worst in the franchise so far after 4, because I've been saying that the fourth one was the one that I found most boring. Although this one isn't super boring, like I said, it does feel made for TV, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be bad quality automatically. But this one is kind of fun, but it's restrained in a lot of things. So what we get here is this woman named Jamie, and Jamie shows up right at the beginning of the film. She's she pulls up to this like apartment building, and this place is completely shitty looking. It looks destroyed. It looks ghetto. It looks falling apart. It looks like somewhere you basically wouldn't want to live. There's, of course, stalks of corn growing outside of it, like in the front entrance or whatnot. So you automatically get some vibes of the third film where they go more into the suburbs and stuff like that. But this woman goes there. She goes inside, and she encounters these two creepy kids, the ones that are right in the back. And these kids are sketchy as fuck, and she doesn't seem to let them get to her very much, I guess, because she's kind of talking to them normally and like saying, "Hey, how are you?" And they're just like your typical children of the corn. But yeah, she doesn't she doesn't seem to give or care too much or be afraid or anything like that. There's this really sketchy elevator that really plays well into a horror film, like one of those like metal elevators that are pulled up by like one cord that look like they can fall or get stuck at any moment. But yeah. I did forget to mention too that there is a dream sequence at the beginning of the film by this old lady. She does the cheesiest "Where are you?" line to open up the film ever, and it's so laughable. Even her dubs are weird because they don't sound like it's her speaking. It sounds like it's clearly somebody else speaking over this woman. But she's having a nightmare, and she bursts through the apartment front doors afterwards, and she goes through. She's like, "Where are you?" And then she ends up being killed or whatnot. And they're introduced to Jamie after that. But yeah, so this whole building is falling apart. The elevator is weird as fuck, and these two kids are, well, we assume living in the building, I guess. This old lady ends up being Jamie's grandmother, and Jamie came down to visit her after not receiving a bunch of Jamie's phone calls, because Jamie kept calling this woman, her grandmother. Her name is Hattie, the grandmother, and she never returned the call, so she's coming to investigate. The grandma's gone. She goes to the police department to make a report, basically, and we're introduced to this, I guess, cop of the town, or investigator, whatever, named Armbrister. Armbrister, I guess it's Sheriff Armbrister or Detective Armbrister. His last name is Armbrister, anyway. He's little to no help. He's basically saying that she'll probably return in 24 hours. Jamie's like, she hasn't returned a call in over a week, so I don't know about that, but he's basically just telling Jamie to relax and just wait for her grandmother to show up back to the apartment. Jamie noticed a Bible beside her grandmother's desk, like bed table desk, and she claims that the grandmother has been a lifelong atheist, so it's very strange that Not only is she not returning calls, but now she has a Bible beside her bed. There's a picture frame of her and her granddaughter, and it's smashed. Like it has like it's cracked, and the whole situation just seems very strange to Jamie. But she's staying in the apartment, looking for her grandmother. Pretty much, there's a scene where she gets what looks like an egg thrown at the window, and there's blood on this. Like it looks like a shattered egg because it looks like there's yolk everywhere, and there's red all over the place too. So I figure it's like a half-born chicken or whatever. But it turns out she mentions to the what do you call him, the landlord of the building. She's having a conversation with him and talking about what's been thrown out her window, and then she mentions it's corn. Well, first of all, corn doesn't splatter like that. So, and second of all, corn is pretty thick, and if it's thrown at your window, I'm pretty sure it would break the window. And there is corn, like scenes of actual corn, dried corn or whatever, that does have blood on it. And there's actually quite a bit of bloody corn that frequently happens throughout this film. So apparently it might have been corn thrown at the window, but like I said, doesn't make too much sense, but neither does quite a few things in this film. She goes to a corner store, and actually, a little bit of nostalgia. There's a video game with those like dual guns, House of the Dead. And of course, it reminds me of Uwe Boll's House of the Dead, which I have a review for on this channel as well. Bad movie aficionado. And there's the game there, the classic House of the Dead that you would see in like every arcade. And the kids they notice it. It's so weird. It's so bizarre because Jamie's basically again acting nice to these kids, and she's trying to teach them how to play the game. I'm like, lady, I'm pretty sure they know how to play video games. I mean, they're creepy and everything, but they're also kids. If anybody's gonna know how to play House of the Dead, it's 9-year-olds, you know. And the guy at the corner store is funny. He's like, she says something along the lines of, at least they're normal enough to play video games. And the clerk's like, they're not normal. And he looks like paranoid about these kids and everything, even though apparently they're always around, kind of, I guess. She goes outside of the store, and the little girl just looks at her and is like, kill! And the Jamie's like, what? The little girl's like, kill! She's like, oh, this? And she whips out a coin. Like a fucking coin. Nickel or quarter or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking, what? How do you go from kill to a coin? And I'm like, oh, is she talking about House of the Dead, the video game? Like, give me a quarter so I can put and play? And the little girl takes the coin and goes back inside and starts playing the game again. I'm like, okay, I was confused there for a second, and I'm still kind of confused, but it is what it is. She meets the landlord, this guy named Jerry, and Jerry is a character, to say the least. This guy is a big pothead. He's always smoking up on a bong. And she tells him, like, she starts yelling at him because he was supposed to take the calls for her grandmother, and he hasn't, like, mentioned anything about her grandmother missing calls and stuff like that. And she's asking him if he actually legitimately delivered these messages to her grandmother or not, and he's just like, chill, man, chill, don't worry too much about it. He's just being a typical stoner. This guy's so strange through the entire film, though. He goes to the rooftop where he likes to barbecue and party a lot by himself. He's dancing to this some like weird ass like reggae rock music, and he's just like partying up there by himself and dancing and shit. These two kids appear again out of nowhere. He's like, where'd you come from? And they're on the ledge of the building, and they end up teleporting a lot in this film, so that ends up being strange enough, but they do explain somewhat why. And this Children of the Corn story is definitely different than the progression that the other 6 films have taken in comparison. It definitely branches off into a different kind of story, for sure. There's this other woman who I believe is a prostitute or a stripper, one of them. but I'm guessing she's an exotic dancer. It doesn't necessarily like say definitively what her job is, but she seems, like she would probably the way she dresses and stuff like that, and the way she acts and talks. She probably has some kind of entertainment kind of job. Uh, and she's funny too. She's a good character. She has a really good death too, in like mid film ish. But yeah, there's like I said, this film feels very much made for TV. There's incredibly cheesy sound design. I mean, a lot of the sound designs and the sound effects I've heard on YouTube already. The ones that you can rip for free, the ones that are like copyright free and shit like that. This film is full of that. There's even sound effects that I've used before in my videos, all throughout this film. So then there's another dream sequence involving Jamie, and Jamie is dreaming about her grandmother, and then we flash back to what opened up the film with the "Where are you?" And the grandma was apparently hearing voices from the children, and they were calling for her, and she goes outside. And then there's this train that goes by, like she goes outside of her apartment, and there's this train that ends up hitting the grandmother and what seemingly crushing her into nothing. But then it cuts to the next scene, and she's on the side of the train tracks, like they're intact with not even a scratch on her, just lying dead. I'm like, give me a fucking break. And then corn starts growing around her body, which is the corn that's in front of the building when Jamie showed up, and it starts growing with like really terrible CGI, and starts to kind of bury her grandmother within the corn kind of thing. And then Jamie wakes up. So there's that whole strange dream, and then we're introduced to what the story entices, or what the we're introduced to the plot of the movie pretty much, which is a cult of children that happened way before Isaac. So we're talking like probably the 30s or 40s. This kid named Abel started a cult, and they go through the history and everything. There's still the whole "he who walks behind the rose." They don't mention it in this film, but you know what's going on if you've seen the previous films. The entity is there. The entity is within the corn. The entity is present in the film the way it was. They just don't really say "he who walks behind the rose" in this movie. But yeah, there was this cult of kids back in the day, and her grandmother was lured into this cult, and as a little girl, kind of thing. So all these kids in this film are basically ghosts. So we're dealing with demon ghost kids. They're not actually there necessarily. I'm pretty sure that the two at the beginning are also ghosts because they teleport, but also because when they come in, or when other kids, like Abel, for example, the leader of this cult, or the previous leader of this cult, like I said, before Isaac, comes in, these kids are involved with them, and then more kids show up, but they're all demons, so I'm gonna, or not demons, they're all ghosts kind of thing. So I'm gonna assume that these two creepy ass kids at the beginning of the film are also ghosts. And with the teleporting thing, it only makes sense. That's my conclusion. There's also a fire plot that goes along with the story, where the grandmother, as a child, survived a fire, and that's basically when she left, and I assume became an atheist after that. And the main character, Jamie, apparently also survived a fire in her life, so there's that whole coincidence about, surviving a fire, or being involved in a fire, and almost having a near-death experience in the fire, so they play along with that a lot. There's a really funny scene involving a corn wreath that's on Tiffany's door. It's Tiffany, right? Tiffany, yeah, the really hot, wild-looking girl. There's a wreath on her door, and she's not the greatest actress in the world, so she's like, "Ew, yuck," throws the fucking thing away, and then she goes inside. She starts taking a bath. She starts stripping. She takes her top off. You can see her tits and everything, and then she takes her panties off, and it cuts like it moves away, and I'm like, ah, damn, of course. So no full frontal, but she takes her panties off, and then you can clearly see that she has another pair underneath. She's behind something, and you're already like, it's kind of giving her a shadow on her like waist down, and it's like translucent. You can kind of see the shape and everything that she's wearing, and when she takes them off, you can see the lining of her second pair of panties. I don't think women wear two pairs of panties often, so I'm pretty sure she did that because she didn't want to show full frontal on camera during the shoot. But do a better job in hiding it, I guess. Like, what it doesn't, you can see that she has two pairs of panties, so she takes the one off and then she has the others on, and you see it's like twice that they show it very clearly that she still has a pair of second panties on. It makes no sense. And then she gets into the bathtub, and I'm like, is she gonna bathe with the panties too? Like, all right. Um, and the bath kill is pretty cool. There's the kid that randomly appears in her bathroom, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And he drops some like corn again with blood, like dried corn. He drops them in the tub, and then this entity wakes up in the tub, and this like weird creature looking thing, and starts to basically eat her up. Eat her up. No pun intended. Um, yeah, and then I guess that's obviously he who walks behind the rose. I assume anyway. If the continuity remains, which who knows? She's yelling in this bathtub and she's screaming her ass off. And there's this other neighbor who's on a wheelchair. He's also introduced throughout the film. He's the guy who like tells everybody to fuck off and is just miserable all the time. He wheels himself to the wall. He takes off his shoe. He starts slamming his fucking shoe on the wall. And he's like, "Quiet down, you fucking whore!" He just keeps calling her. He's like, "Go to another apartment and fuck your brains out, you fucking slut." Because he thinks he's, or she's banging somebody next door. And, and he just keeps like mouthing off to this woman, not knowing that she's being murdered by something bad back there. But he has a nice death too. Actually, the kids like wheel him out, like push him off a balcony, and he just like flies off the balcony. And it was fitting for his character for sure to have a gruesome death like that. Wasn't too fitting for Tiffany. I liked Tiffany, and she was fairly good looking. So, but her death was funny, and the whole situation of her death was pretty funny as well. There's a scene where the police officer, the cop, Armbrister, is trying to check for blood because he notices something on the wall that's dark and blood looking, and he takes a sample, and he's like, you can rest easy. It's not her blood." And he's like, "It's Hershey's." And then Jamie's like, "Chocolate?" And he's like, "Yeah, chocolate. That's even more confusing than blood. Like, okay, it's not blood, so it's not grandma's blood, but it's what, grandma's Hershey's? What is melted chocolate doing on the wall? I don't get it." She should be questioning more than blood. Like, oh, it's not blood, it's Hershey's, thank God. Whew. Grandma must have microwaved some Hershey's and just started spreading it on the wall. That's good. That's good. You know, nothing wrong with that. Michael Ironside makes an appearance in this film. He is barely in this film. I'm pretty sure they put his name like on one of the first credits because he's been in so much and he's a really recognized name. But he plays a priest who barely gives any information at all, like, or any advice on how to defeat an evil or what's going on. He's just like, the building, there's evil in the building. You must be careful. And he has one scene with Jamie where he tries to get her to drink communion wine, and she's like, oh, she kind of refuses. She's like, no, thank you, I don't believe in that. And he's like, I'm not asking. And then she's like, and then just takes it and swigs it, and just like, okay, well, that was fast convincing for you. There's a scene too where Jerry, he has apparently these ghost goggles, and he puts them on, and when it goes all like, it's like kind of night vision, but he can see the ghosts when these goggles are on, and he's like like running away from the ghosts because the ghosts are like all after him, and he can see them with the goggles on. So he has a nice death himself. Nice death. I sound I sound like a fucking psycho. He has a nice death. I liked watching that death. I liked that watching that person die. Only if you're a horror fan do you know what I'm talking about. No, I don't like seeing people die, but when it comes to horror cinema, knowing it's all pretend It's a different kind of I like that. Um, I wrote down "kill I get your game," but I don't know what I'm referring to there. Um, when Jamie goes back to the corner store, she discovers, or the police actually discover, they're doing an investigation because the corner store's clerk's head is in the freezer or fridge, and it's been there for quite a few hours. So they're investigating that whole thing. Um, and yeah, and then the entity of Abel, the ghost of Abel, the leader of these kids, returns, and I guess this whole apartment building ended up being haunted because these kids from way back when were trying to find the grandmother again, Grandma Hattie, and found her and killed her, I guess, and now they're trying to revamp their cult in ghost form, I guess, and and they're trying to, I guess, take over the apartment building. Now, I don't get how Jamie had the power to destroy the evil. She ends up lighting the building on fire using the wreath and using some gas from a gas stove, which she turns on full blast and then fills the kitchen up with gas and then lights the wreath on fire and throws the wreath into the kitchen. And there's a massive explosion that she just, in movie magic, dives from, but like movie magic doesn't even cut it. This is just ridiculous how she gets away from this explosion. And obviously it's a green screen, it looks fake as fuck, and she's diving to like away from it. And then the doors in the building just start blowing up, and this building is like literally looking like a bomb of like it looks like there's sticks of dynamite behind each door and just blasting each open, and she just of course gets away with Armbrister. I keep forgetting his name, it's a weird name. And then they light the corn on fire at the like outside the building, and once they do, you can see the spirits of these kids go up in like ghostly face figures kind of thing, and they're all you know, ascending into the afterlife, I guess. And then the movie pretty much ends right there. But like I said, there's no unless I missed it or unless it was said extremely briefly, but I don't know like how she had the power or the knowledge to know what to do or how to do it, because even like I said, Michael Ironside's character who plays the priest, I quote because he doesn't have a name, doesn't tell her any information. He's just like, the place is haunted and you got to be careful, and everybody's telling her to leave as a matter of fact, and you know, not succumb herself to this situation, including her grandmother, because in the dreams that was what her grandmother was trying to tell her. And she doesn't have like much information or much description to end the situation, but she does with the cop, and it just ends there. Like, I don't know. Like it seemed maybe rushed. Not to say that it doesn't have its fun scenes, like its fun horror scenes in it, but it's not. It's a weak entry. It's more fun than the fourth one was, but the fourth one was written better, and had more going for it plot wise. So they're different kinds of bad. They're different kinds of shitty sequel, I guess. But I mean, I'm a completionist, so I have to watch them all. Next review is going to be the Children of the Corn remake, and I'm still waiting to buy that one. So I gotta find it for a decent price and then buy it and then review it. And then I'm gonna get to Genesis, which I own, but I have to watch them in order, and I've never seen them before, so I'm not gonna watch them out of order. And then Runaway, I need to buy that one too. So there are 3 certain Children of the Corn films reviews coming still. And there's a third remake of Children of the Corn, which apparently was released in 2020, but literally only played in like 2 theaters in the United States. 2 theaters in the United States for one night. I've never seen something like that really happen. I don't know why. Apparently only made like $1,025 in its entire release. It didn't have a video release. You can't download it anywhere. It's really, really, really strange. But like I said, there's 3 more for sure. Remake, the 2008 remake or something, or 2006, something like that. Genesis and Runaway. So those are coming for sure. But that's Children of the Corn 7 Revelation. Not the biggest waste of time in the world, but not good whatsoever. So, unless you're an actual horror fan or a completist, or you really like going through entire franchises, I'd say it's not one to go out of your way for. But check it out if you like horror and if you like evil kids. The kids are creepy in this film, especially the two main ones, that little boy and girl. They definitely have creepy moments, and I really like the whole thing that happens with House of the Dead and their love for it. It's quite funny, but it's a funny movie and it's a fun film for sure. But yeah, that's it. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you'd like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more real soon. Take care. Stay tuned for those if you're interested. And until the next one, have a good one. Take care. Talk to you later, and cheers.